Imagine people like the governors of different states believing that they are our commanders, our controllers. And people believe this claim. To believe in authority is to condone slavery. If you are a believer in authority, you are someone who is saying, I believe in and condone slavery. There's not enough people speaking out in courage that that is a false paradigm and belief system. That's how the tables have to be turned. There is nothing new under the sun. Truth is eternal. It has always been here and it always will be here. The problem is that the government-controlled mainstream media wants us to associate that which is new, or the news, in other words, with that which is true. And as we all should know by this point in time, nothing could be further from the truth. The news isn't telling us what is true. It is just presenting that which is quote unquote new to us. So we, want to latch on to the new stuff. This is a mind control technique. What we are in the midst of right now at this point in human history is a socially engineered perceived crisis. Now, as a result of this and as a result of subsequent events, many other events are taking place as well. See, the crisis that we are in is highly orchestrated and it's a managed large-scale event. It's designed to steer the mental perceptions of large amounts of the population in a specific direction, which is specifically dictated by the social engineers of our world. In other words, the ruling class of our world, the mind controllers of our world, the dark occultists of our world. This entire event is a managed crisis of perception to make it seem much more dangerous than it actually is. This crisis of perception is designed to create fear, trauma, cowardice, inaction, mistrust, division, and submission. Ultimate submission is what it is designed to create. And it is working beautifully, unfortunately. And that is because people still tune in to the talking heads on the mainstream media, and they're falling into a consciousness of fear and division as a result. People are still easily led and easily mind controlled by the social engineer ruling class. So the mainstream media, they're telling people whatever the ruling class wants them to think and believe, and it's working beautifully because consciousness has still not evolved to a level of understanding that these people are paid liars and they are trying to steer human consciousness in the direction that the ruling class wants it to go. But the media is doing its job of instilling fear into the human population, and they're buying it largely hook, line, and sinker. A small percentage of people aren't buying it, and they are trying to put out an alternative narrative, and then as a result, the ruling class is trying to block that narrative from being understood by the majority of people. The majority of people are television watchers. They're still tuning into the mainstream nightly news for their information and government-related websites for their information, and unfortunately, that means that most of them are buying into this perceived crisis, this perceived, managed, socially engineered crisis. We have to disconnect from that mainstream information and take information in from a wide and eclectic variety of sources before coming to a conclusion about what is really taking place, and by applying a true truth discovery methodology, namely the trivium, to understand what's really happening. Most people still really don't understand what your great work is to do. It isn't just to absorb information. It's to understand how many asleep people there are out there and go to work on trying to wake them up by putting information out into the world. Far too few people are doing that. It's a cult. These people are in a cult. Stop sugarcoating the words. It's not just their perspective. It's a managed perspective that is socially engineered to drive behavior in a certain direction by the dark occultists who rule our society. That is the definition of inculcating people into a cult belief system, and most of them are right there. And here are the characteristics of their mindset: blind belief without verification through a real truth discovery methodology. They listen to the news, they listen to the government narrative, they listen to the mainstream media narrative, and they accept it on blind faith. They have no first-hand knowledge, whether scientifically or with life experience of anything that is actually happening, they simply accept what is being told to them. They have no actual skepticism of quote-unquote officials and quote-unquote experts. Another part of these true believers' mindset is the belief in a superior class. They believe that the dogmatic experts that are telling us what we must believe and that we have no other choice to believe this narrative comprise a superior class of human beings to the average person. It's not just that they think these people are superior to other people, it's they think that there are masters. That's what this worldview really is all about. They believe in a master class and an inferior slave class that must obey their edicts and dictates. They believe that the master class has the quote-unquote right to command others. This is part of this cult mentality. Imagine people like the governors of different states believing that they are our commanders, our governors, our controllers, that they can dictate by their voice alone and the stroke of a pen what people may or may not do in their own lives. Imagine, they think they're kings and rulers and masters of other people. And people believe this claim that's called authority in government. It's the belief that the master class has the right to command others. We're in a state where slavery has been accepted wholesale. And there are people who believe that the ruling class has the legitimate moral right to rule and other people are legitimately their slaves. This is really where we're at in humanity, worldwide. And the vast majority of people have accepted that paradigm. There's not enough people speaking out in courage that that is a false paradigm and belief system. This is what the message that we have to put out there to this body of the population that still believes the mainstream media narrative and still believes the government narrative. To believe in authority is to condone slavery. That is exactly what it is. Stop sugarcoating it and start saying what it is to other people. To believe in authority is to condone slavery. If you are a believer in authority and you are a believer that there is moral legitimacy to government, you are someone who is saying, I believe in and condone slavery. Because that is what the right to command and rule other people is. It is slavery, and that is what government is on its face. The cult members want to point fingers at other people who don't believe their worldview of authority. You know, they want to say, oh, shame on you. No, not shame on us. Shame on you for accepting that slavery is morally legitimate. How about that? That's how the tables have to be turned. Your worldview is false and illegitimate, morally, on its face. These people believe that all alternative viewpoints of reality, perspectives of reality, are to be banned and banished and even possibly made illegal. Okay? And people who don't accept their worldview as it is put out there by the mainstream media and the government and other quote-unquote officials or quote-unquote experts is not to be challenged, and they are to have their rights stripped from them if they don't accept that worldview. There is not a ruling class and there is not a slave class. And that is what the people out there in our world today believe there is, and they believe there's moral legitimacy to it. People with no knowledge just completely giving into fear. And the biggest fear is fear of the unknown, because fear of the unknown is what holds people back from knowledge and higher awareness. See, if you fear knowledge because you fear what you might discover, it is going to create a feedback loop of fear, because fear comes from lack of knowledge. Ignorance is what creates fear. Refusal of truth is what creates fear. It's how brainwashed and easily manipulated the masses of people can become. Truer words were never spoken. You know, that's what we really should be concerned about. And guess what? We could be doing something about it, but how many of us are? Okay? You know, we could be stepping up and trying to morally educate people, but you know what? That chorus of voices is extremely weak compared to the amount of voices that are constantly speaking the lie to everyone within earshot. That's all you got to do is ask yourself, which voice is more omnipresent and the loudest and the most powerful? Is it the voice of truth, or is it the voice of deception and lies? And I think if you're being honest with yourself, you will answer that question honestly and truthfully.